What are mobsters' opinions of other mobsters? Let's check it out. Welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we're going to take a quick look at some interviews of mobsters discussing other mobsters. Micky Boy Paradiso started off as a soldier in the crew of Gambino family captain Olimpio Lilo Garofalo. Later in his career, he would become a captain, and in recent years it was speculated that Michael Paradiso had been serving as the Gambino crime family's consigliere. In his younger days, Micky Boy Paradiso was a greatly feared mobster, who was once recorded talking with his brother, saying, "This morning they showed me a piece of paper. There's 10 names there. I killed every one of them, starting with Frank Marici for you." Former Bonanno crime family captain Dominic Cicale spent some time in prison with Michael Paradiso. Cicale would say about Micky Boy,
"Yes, we had nicknamed him in jail Attila the Hun, and because he was just a powerful guy. You look at him, you would think he was out of shape, an older guy, but he was strong, solid, and he had no feeling in one arm, and he would hit you with that arm, not even realizing the power behind it. It would hurt, and he would feel no pain because he had no feeling. We used to make fun of him because he was solid, a solid man, and we used to say, "Uh-oh, here comes Superman." Dun, 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 dun. And Bruno would do that all the time to him. And he'd be like, "All right, don't tell him I did that. Don't tell him I did that. He'll cripple me. But it was just funny. It was hilarious. We really enjoyed one another there.
Charlie Moose Panarella was a longtime mobster in the Colombo crime family. Charlie Moose was another extremely dangerous mobster who allegedly was given the responsibility of overseeing the murder of feared Colombo crime family captain Dominick Mimicialo. Mafia legend states that Panarella once made a man eat his own testicle before he killed him. Former Gambino crime family underboss Sammy the Bull Gravano remembers Panarella. He states,
"Well, when I was in the Colombo family, I wasn't made, but I was with them in their war. I did my first piece of work with the Colombo family. I knew him well. He was a real nasty guy, tough guy. I believe he was a captain."
John Carneglia and his brother Charles are both made men in the Gambino crime family. John Carneglia was allegedly the man who put the fatal shots into family boss Paul Castellano outside Sparks Steakhouse in 1985. His brother Charles was also feared, but considered more unstable than his respected brother John. Alleged Colombo family associate Sal Polisi discusses the Carneglia brothers.
"Yeah, I did. I did know John. John was a good guy. I was friends with him. I sold him a lot of cars. I was in the stolen car business. He is a classy guy with character. Now, much to everybody else's surprise, Charles was a sicko. Charles was an absolute sicko. I did do a little business with Charles. One time I needed a special key for a car, and I took Charles the lock, and he made me the key. And I managed to rip off a couple of $100,000 in jewelry without even seeing the man who had the jewelry. I slipped into the trunk and got the jewelry. So Charles was pretty expertise at cars. Now, some of the things he did that I had found out about was he tortured women. We happened to hang out at the same restaurant diner in Queens. And I knew one of the girls that worked there, and she had told me he was torturing women, burning women with cigarettes. I mean, I did take some weed off Charles. I didn't like dealing with marijuana, but I had a brother-in-law who liked it. So I'd bring him a car with a big trunk, and Charles would fill up the trunk with marijuana. I'd give it to my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law would give me the money. I'd pay Charles and then go back and get another load of marijuana. It was too big for me in volume. Like 70 pounds of marijuana might have been a couple $1,000. A little bag of heroin was $250,000. So I like dealing with the drug of choice, which was like gold. Heroin's like gold. And I did know Charles well. I didn't know he was killing people the way he was doing, but they had an operation in Brooklyn, him and his brother, where I could drop a car off, and in a couple hours it would be crushed. They would take it over to Brooklyn, in the middle of Brooklyn, and they had a huge salvage yard. They'd crush it up to a cube. So what they did with bodies and cars, I don't know. I mean, they were doing tricks over there, though.
Armand Buddy Dellacroce was the son of powerful Gambino family underboss Neil Dellacroce. Buddy Dellacroce was inducted into the Gambino crime family in 1978 at the age of just 23. Buddy Dellacroce was known to have a drug problem that plagued his adult life. In early 1986, a few weeks after his father Neil Dellacroce had passed away, Buddy Dellacroce took a plea deal in a case that also involved John Gotti. The plea deal was against Gotti's orders. And so, before Buddy Dellacroce had to report for sentencing in March 1986, he skipped bail and fled to the Poconos area of Pennsylvania. Some sources state that Buddy Dellacroce ran because he feared for his life after disobeying John Gotti. Others state it's because he didn't want to go to prison. Buddy Dellacroce would eventually die in hiding due to issues related to his substance abuse. Former Gambino family associate Anthony Ruggiano Jr., son of respected Gambino mobster Andy Ruggiano, remembers Buddy Dellacroce.
You know, I had a very close relationship with Buddy. We were at the same age. He was a very, very dear friend of mine, and we would be in the Ravenite, and John would be, this is when his father was alive, of course, John would be in the back of the Ravenite sitting with his father and my father and Tony Lee and everybody. They used to play pinochle in the back of the Ravenite, and we would be at the bar drinking coffee, and he would tell me, well, I know when my father dies, that guy's going to kill me. And he used to point to John. And I used to tell him, you're crazy, Buddy. For some reason, Buddy always felt John didn't like him. And maybe he didn't, but I never got that vibe. Because, Buddy had bad habits like we all did. Buddy was a partier. He was a big partier, Buddy. Eventually, that's what killed him, alcohol and drugs. But he always had that fear in his mind of John. He always had some fear of John. And when his father died, he was incarcerated. And, he took a plea to get out of prison, which John didn't want anybody to take a plea. And out of fear of John, now that his father's dead and he lost his protection, from what I understand, he left prison, got out, and went and got all his father's jewelry, which was a lot of jewelry, over $1 million in jewelry, and he absconded with the jewelry. I knew this through his cousin Sal, because Sal was the only one that knew where he was. And they actually used to come and visit me in prison, him and Sal. When I was in 78, when I went away on my first case and I was in Art to Kill in 79, Buddy and Sal used to come and visit me all the time. So I had a really good relationship with them. And but out of fear of John, he ran away, Buddy, and he was never seen again. And then unfortunately he died from addiction. I mean, from eternal bleeding and all that. But but he always had a fear of John. For some reason, he always had a delusion that John was going to hurt him. And I used to tell him, you're crazy. The guy isn't going to do that. I never heard anything. I never heard any rumors or any innuendos pertaining to that. But that was his fear.
Before he was sentenced to life in prison, former Bonanno crime family acting boss Vincent Vinny Gorgeous Basciano was a mobster who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, even when he was serving as a captain. Anthony Tony Green Urso would say of Basciano, he had a lot of them guys around him, and if something needed to be done, he would do it himself. Former Bonanno crime family captain Dominic Cicale would recall,
yes, Vinny was old school, where Vinny initially, Vinny never had to do a piece of work. He was a captain, powerful one. He became an acting boss, and he would still go do work. Vinny's motto was, how could any of these guys like myself, respect him if he's given orders to kill? So Vinny would Vinny would show, lead by example. I wouldn't ask you to do something I haven't done with you already. And which is, you earn a lot of respect with that. And Vinny was very sharp and wise.
Willie Boy Johnson was a Gambino crime family associate who was famously also an active informant before he was murdered. Former Colombo family associate Sal Polisi talks about Willie Boy.
He was the character. Let me tell you, people thought he was dumb. You know, they made fun of him being a half Indian. But I got pretty close to him. And towards, maybe the end of my time in New York, I left New York City in 82. Maybe in the late 70s, he gave me some samples of heroin because we had a mutual friend who was dealing heroin. And I said, hey, Willie Boy, how many times did you step on this stuff? He said, go check it out. He gave me 2 samples. One of the samples he gave me was a 50% heroin, the other was cut. And when he gave me the second sample, I brought it back to him. This is the real deal. It's around 97, 98%. So he knew I had a chemist. And occasionally he'd give me a sample. I didn't want anything from him. We were just like friends. I had no clue that he was working undercover for the feds. But even to add to that, not only did he work undercover for the feds, but he actually went undercover for the state of New York in Queens County and passed my name along to one of the investigators. And for years, he was working both sides. Nobody knew that. So they might have thought he was dumb. But to do that, he had to be pretty sharp.
Nicholas Nicky Corozzo is a longtime powerful member of the Gambino crime family. Corozzo was once touted as a potential boss for the family if it wasn't for his legal problems. In his early days, Nicky Corozzo had been an associate of Anthony Fat Andy Ruggiano. Fat Andy's son, Anthony Ruggiano Jr., recalls the circumstances that led to Nicky Corozzo being inducted into the Gambino family back in 1977.
Yeah, so what happened was, when the books got opened, he was debating. He didn't really want to propose anybody. His theory was he didn't want to make anybody his equal. He didn't want, because, he didn't want to make anybody his equal to Tony Lee and him. But he loved Nicky Corozzo. So Tony Lee told him, well, I'm going to propose Tony Pep, which was Anthony Trentacosta, because they were close. They had and then my father said, well, if that's the case, the only one we should straighten out is Nicky, because that was his main guy. And then they proposed Nicky. And then what happened was Jeannie Gotti had gotten straightened out first, even before John, because John was incarcerated. So Jeannie Gotti got straightened out first, and Nicky did some stuff. Nicky was involved in some hit. They were supposed to clip Carmine Mendoza, but it never came off. Gambino called it off at the last minute, but they were on that hit team, Nicky and Lenny. And so when Jeannie got straightened out first, my father went to Neil and said, like, what's going on? How could this kid go in before Nicky? And, how did he go in first? And then they were at a wedding, actually, a couple of months later. And Neil told my father that Nicky's going to get straightened out next week as a ceremony, and they're going to do Lenny also as a gift to my father. So that's how Lenny, Di Maria, and Nicky both got made together at the same ceremony.
Anthony Bruno Indelicato is a made man in the Bonanno crime family. He was famously part of the hit team that took out Carmine Galante and 2 others in 1979. Bruno's father, Alphonse Sonny Red Indelicato, was a powerful Bonanno family captain who was killed in the infamous 3 Capos murder in 1981. A hit in part orchestrated by then Bonanno family captain Joe Massino. When Indelicato came out of prison after serving time for his part in the Galante hit, Joe Massino had risen to become boss of the family. Dominic Cicale recalls that Bruno Indelicato accepted that his father's death was just part of the life they had chosen, and he sought no revenge on Joe Massino. Something that Cicale states that Vinny Basciano would not have let slide if he had been in Bruno's shoes. Cicale states,
no, we never discussed it. that was something he didn't discuss. But at one time, when things came up, as far as with Joe Massino, Bruno just left it in the past. It was part of the life. Bruno accepted it. And that was basically it. Whereas if it was Vinny's father that was killed, Vinny might put out there he's accepting it, but Vinny would have definitely killed Joe, took Joe out at one point in time.
So Bruno understood it was just part of the life. He held no open resentment towards Massino. Where you say Vinny would have taken it personally.
Yes, you have two different, even though both men are extremely serious and, will put in the work. They have different mindsets where Vinny's just more, I would say it's more about his reputation, the way he feels inside, what should be done. Where Bruno's more accepting, forgiving. Vinny would have never forgiven that.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed those interview clips, and I will be back with my normal format in a new video this Saturday. Thanks for watching.